Hi everyone, it's Mike Smith from Hawkeye Options. Look, we've got a interesting situation to have a look at. Obviously, the market's interesting as a whole. We've got a V-shaped bounce potentially. We're looking at 2080 on the S&P 500 to confirm that that V-shape is complete and that we're trading back within that range we've been in really for a substantial number of weeks over the last few months. But we're looking at GPS, and there's a couple of reasons I've put this up. Firstly, obviously, it was a trade that we'd put up there as a potential before, but never actually broke that pivot high with any conviction. Unfortunately, we actually triggered an entry on this day here, and of course we're on the receiving end of this rather severe drop. Interestingly, the stock has remained in uptrend according to the Hawkeye dots, and that's obviously because it takes into account just more than one bar, and there's a remaining uptrend on the 2-day. We see buying volume on the 2-day and the weekly intact, and we see a flattening of the red dots on the weekly. So if we were to look at this clean, we'd want to see green volume on this bar here, which is likely to be the case should we see a break of this level, which is about 2107. Interestingly, of course, at the beginning of May there, we also saw this level being the low before we had the gap down that we see there, and that was an earnings drop. So what we've got really is a stock which looks as though it's ready to have another pop at this key level. However, the stock does go ex-dividend tomorrow. So initially we were looking at this as a potential bull put spread, perhaps at 20 and 19, which yielded 20 cents or so. But unfortunately, of course, it goes ex-dividend, so the price drop is actually priced into the options. So with it going ex-dividend tomorrow, the dividend is 23 cents, then perhaps that's not the best way to go. We can look at it tomorrow again, particularly if it doesn't break this level. Although with a dividend of 23 cents, really a 21.40 break may well be enough to say, well, look, even taking into account the dividend drop tomorrow, it still may be worth a look at. So that's one way we could play. We could play with a credit spread. We could look at a straight bought call. Or the other thing we could do is, if we like this long term, and we are actually liking this long term, if we do, let's just have a look at the monthly, because often we look at the monthly chart when we're looking at a longer term trade. You see, monthly, we haven't got the same conviction that this downtrend has stopped, even though we've got this pretty obvious key line in the sand at this $21. It's going to take a move really over that level to be convinced, if we use the monthly chart for our decision making, that this may be a good move in the long term. However, in light of the momentum we see on the daily and the 2-day chart, and on the weekly with this flattening of trend, then one of the other types of trades we could consider is a diagonal call spread. So buying a long-term call and subsequently selling weekly or monthly calls over the top of it. Obviously, GPS is quite a liquid option, and hence gives us the opportunity to consider this for this particular strategy. So those are your options, if you'll excuse the pun. Those are your alternatives for a trade on GPS today, bearing in mind it's going ex-dividend tomorrow. Obviously, if we're entering a sold call position of any sort, then we would want to make sure that that's out of the money. But even if we're buying a diagonal call spread, then we wouldn't be writing the call today, would be delay writing until tomorrow at the earliest. So there's one for you to consider. I just thought it was an interesting set of circumstances that is tradable, but know the risks and know the pros and cons of each approach. And that's just one of the trades I'm considering for today. So before we go, if you'd like to see everything I'm considering and see the trades I'm really taking, why not take a trial to my Options Elite alert and training service? That way, you can see exactly how I find the best trades that can produce the largest returns whilst keeping the risk low. Just click on the link below and get started today. You'll be glad you did. See you soon.